free to give some banter. So this is my second time at Monki Gras and my second time in London. I have to say I really like it. This is the first time I've ever taken a bus anywhere and enjoyed it. Let me do one thing real quick. So right, what bugs taught us about people? And when I was sitting there thinking about this before I started, I guess what I really want to talk about is how we got over 100 engineers to work on bugs in code that they didn't write, which turns out to be a really hard problem. People don't like that very much. So that's basically what my talk is about. As James said, I work at Etsy. Etsy's an online marketplace for handmade goods. We have over 23 million items listed on Etsy. We had more than $1 billion in sales last year, which is awesome. We have well over 30 million users now, and about 60 million visitors per month, which is just scale-wise, it's a pretty big site. We're also really known for our engineering culture. We're about 500 people now at Etsy, well over 100 engineers. We have a blog, codiscraft.etsy.com, that a lot of people read. And kind of probably the #1 engineering thing we're known for is being really hardcore practitioners of continuous deployment. So our engineering team as a whole pushes over 60 times a day, and usually we push in groups of people, so we're really talking about hundreds of commits per day pushed throughout business hours. So yeah, we move really fast, we work really iteratively, and one interesting side effect about how we build software is that we have what I'm going to call varying degrees of code ownership. There are some parts of the site, payments, infrastructure, things like that, that have maintainers and are under constant maintenance. It's no worry. But there are a lot of features that sort of get built, put on the website, and then nobody works on them for a while. And maybe the people who worked on them move on to other teams or leave the company or anything else. And it's like, gosh, what do we do? How do we fix bugs when they get reported in this code? We've never had a great answer to that question. And so at the end of 2012, we looked and we found we had about 1,000 open bugs, some of which are completely unimportant, some of which were kind of a big deal, and we didn't really know how to fix them or what to do about it. Our CTO did us the helpful favor of documenting some of the approaches Etsy's taken in the past. I doubt you guys can read that. To try before we tried the thing that I'm going to talk about. #1 was don't write bugs. Another classic was once you own a piece of code, once you write a piece of code, you own it forever, and your top priority is fixing all the bugs in it. And my personal favorite is delete all code over a year old, switch to a new language, and rewrite it. These were all failed strategies for dealing with a backlog of bugs on a busy website. So we decided to try something new. This guy's Eric Fixler. He's a director of engineering at Etsy. He does not normally look like this. And he came with a proposal at the end of 2012 when we had an engineering manager offsite for what he called bug rotation. It's something he had tried on his own team at a small scale and wanted to try for the entire engineering department. And I was really super enthused about it because it was kind of a unique idea that I hadn't heard of before. And so, bug rotation 1.0. The basic idea was that all the engineers would get put into buckets and they would attend 1 day per month. We'd have one of our engineering managers would be assigned to bug rotation per week, and they would kind of manage the people on bug rotation, help them decide what to work on. And then engineers would just choose whichever bug they wanted to fix from the big list of 1,000 bugs. Go there, look in Jira, pick a bug, start working on it. And what the anticipated benefits, #1 obviously was, hey, we have this huge backlog of bugs, let's get rid of some of them. But we also thought the kind of carrot that we would give people to do this thing was you'd get to work with people you don't normally work with at bug rotation. You would get to see parts of the code that you had never seen before, visit exotic locales like the conversation code no one's touched in 3 years. So that was kind of the sell, and that we'd have them all sit at one table together. So it'd be kind of a spot away from your regular job, get to do new things. And the early days, this is a picture of a chainsaw because we were really ripping through the bugs when we first started out. As you can imagine, with 1,000 open bugs, a lot of them had just sort of accidentally been fixed by other changes on the site. They just got resolved. There were things that were really small changes. You could fix them. So the engineers were fixing 5 or 10 bugs a day. Everybody felt great about it. Like, yeah, I finished 10 things today. Morale was awesome. But of course, what happened a month or two in, maybe 3, is we'd picked all the low-hanging fruit. And so, what was left behind was the hard cases. Either bugs that you couldn't fix because fixing them took on too much risk. Like coming to bug rotation for one day, you don't normally work on checkout, and fixing a checkout bug is a really, really risky maneuver, and we wouldn't recommend it. So you couldn't work on that, or you'd come and see a bug that 3 engineers had failed to fix in their bug rotation. It had all their notes. It's like a death march. You didn't want to do that. So we entered into what I will refer to as the era of discontent. I don't know if you can see the background, but you can't really. It's a page of a book of train wrecks. Anyway, by the way, all my slide backgrounds that you can't see are items that are actually for sale on Etsy. So we entered into this era of discontent, and bug rotation became a big morale problem for our engineering team at Etsy. One of the engineers on my team told me that he intentionally scheduled his vacation so that they would conflict with bug rotation and he wouldn't have to go. Another guy told me his only unhappy days of working at Etsy were the days he went to bug rotation. And I'd just walk through the cafeteria and I'd see little clusters of engineers, basically bitching about the fact that they had to go to bug rotation that week or something. So it had become a big problem. And I was really sad about that because I really liked bug rotation. I thought conceptually it was super cool. So I'm going to talk about basically why people hated it. First was the basic paradox of choice problem. So you go there and you have 500 bugs to choose from. That may as well be a million. It's just demoralizing to sit there and go through things that you don't want to work on. A big list of tasks you hate, not fun. Unclear priorities. So basically, support didn't rank the bugs or tell people which ones were really bothering our customers, and these were mostly user-reported bugs. So people didn't really have a sense of whether they were even doing something that mattered to any actual human. And that kind of led to a perceived lack of value. You go to bug rotation, you're taking a day off for something you do think is important. That's why you're working on it. So they hated that. Another weird thing that just was kind of problematic was the static schedule. So we put everyone in buckets at the beginning and left those buckets in that place. So you're supposed to work with different people every time, but you wind up working with the same people every month, all of whom were probably as disgruntled as you are. So that was no help. And then some of the buckets had attrition for various reasons, and so people would show up and they'd be the only person on bug rotation that day. It was just kind of sad. And finally, I have a big bucket of things that I won't talk about all of them that I'll refer to as engineering manager fail. Some engineering managers were super excited about managing bug rotation. I was late in the rotation. I was so excited by the time I got there that I coerced my wife into baking baked goods for everyone on bug rotation the whole week, and I was really into it, helped people pick the bugs. But other engineering managers, some of them did not engage at that level. They basically went and just sat there and worked on whatever they were going to work on anyway. Which didn't help with the people who were working on it. And the ones who didn't buy into it would do things like pick the bugs in advance from projects that were actually under active development and tell their developers to work on those during bug rotation instead of bug rotation bugs. So just the kind of lack of respect for it didn't help anything. So in the end, we basically ended up with a lot of this sentiment. Why clean up other people's messes? One of the core values of Etsy engineering is we want people to basically demonstrate generosity of spirit. And it came to be this idea, we'd have this community approach to fixing bugs, turned out to really kind of erode people's generosity of spirit. So gosh, it was kind of a disaster at this point, probably by the middle of the year. So we were 6 months in, and basically it was time to reconsider, what are we going to do with bug rotation? Coincidentally, we had another engineering manager offsite. We talked about the big morale issue, and we basically punted on it and created a working group to work on it instead, which in government, that's like death. We have a blue ribbon panel that's going to fix bug rotation. But fortunately, so because I was a bug rotation enthusiast, I volunteered to be the head of the panel, and I was pretty serious about trying to fix it or do something with it. So after this meeting, we got our little panel together, and basically the discussion turned to, should we kill it? A lot of the engineering managers on the panel were like, screw it, my engineers hate it, I don't really see the value, let's just get rid of this thing. And I think we were kind of headed in that direction when we learned something surprising. Support loves bug rotation. We invited a guy who was a manager on the support team to come to our bug rotation panel meetings, and he gave this impassioned 30-minute speech about how support's never been able to get what they need from engineering, they don't know who to ask to fix bugs. Now finally, things members care about and are sending lots of email about are getting fixed in a timely fashion. So he was so excited and so happy about it and was completely dismayed that we were even thinking about killing it. So I was like, okay, well, killing it is off the table. We're going to have to come up with an alternative instead. And so the real question became, how do we kind of maintain this tighter feedback loop with support than we had before? A funny thing happens at Etsy. If you introduce a bug that affects engineering or especially disrupts our continuous deployment process in the whole way, no ticket ever gets filed because the other engineers will not wait that long. If you don't notice it yourself, they will come to your desk, they will hound you on IRC and say, hey, your code is spewing tons of errors in the logs. It makes it hard for us to see what's going on when we deploy. Fix it now, what can I do to help you fix it now? Whereas if we're getting 10 emails a day about some strange bug on the site, there wasn't that feedback loop from support to engineering to say, hey, this is really like creating a lot of work for support, please fix it. So this is kind of what bug rotation gave us, and the question was kind of how to make that better and how to make it more evident to the engineers who were actually working on bug rotation that they were helping out these support people who they want to help. They just didn't get that that's what was going on. So we sat down, and I put bug rotation 2.0, but in truth, this was like a really iterative process of fixing this thing. And so the first thing we did was get rid of the 500 bug queue that you could pick from. We had the support people, a team on support, pick the bugs that they really cared about, and it never has more than about 10 or 12 bugs on it, so it's much easier for the engineers to choose which bugs they wanted to work on. The second thing is people hated it, so we just didn't make them go so much. We reshuffled the bucket so it was randomized every time, and so it was basically you had to go once every 6 weeks instead of once every 4 weeks, people like that. And we also told them that once they fixed one bug, they could go back to their desk and do whatever they wanted. So instead of soldiering away all through the day trying to fix as many bugs as they could, it was fix it and go. People definitely liked that, especially because it meant that you kind of didn't leave the day failing. You take 7 hours one day to fix a bug, and then you start on another one. You know you're not going to finish it, and you leave with an unfinished task. It's not a happy thing. So we changed that up. And the other thing is, we said at the beginning it was about working and collaborating, so we changed it so that people worked in pairs. So we said 2 people work together, they'll take one bug, fix it, be done. And by randomizing it and explicitly making it about working in pairs, people really did see code they'd not seen before and began to actually get to work with other people, which was good. And finally, we took one of the people basically volunteered from the bug rotation working group to sort of take over bug rotation. Once we started having a working group, we really closed down the number of engineering managers who managed it to people who really wanted to think about how to make bug rotation better, were really committed to it. And eventually one guy basically stepped forward and said, I have a lot of ideas for this, I'm really engaged with it, and I just kind of want to do it. And so in addition to doing his regular work, he went to bug rotation every single day. And that made a huge difference. And the last thing we did, and the background is red because this was by far the most controversial thing we did, was let people opt out of bug rotation. So when we talked about this and we started telling the other engineering managers who weren't in our group about it, they were like, if you let people opt out, what's going to happen is everyone will opt out and it'll be over. In fact, one of our executives sent me an email and was like, you're empowered if you just want to kill bug rotation to do it. You don't have to backdoor it. And I was like, actually, we don't think that's going to happen. And we have to let people opt out because if we're going to explicitly make it about people working together, we'd prefer people who don't want to be there not be there. That will just ruin it for whoever they're assigned to work with. So we let people just opt out of it. And we never had more than 5% of the people opt out. So the opt-out was minimal impact, but it kind of made everyone feel better about bug rotation because suddenly they were there because they'd agreed to be there instead of being there because someone forced them to be there. It was a really kind of a profound psychological effect that surprised us. So what did we achieve at bug rotation? The first thing is that we have our bug queue really under control. We're basically fixing bugs at the rate that they come in, and it's been successful enough that we've now been able to cut it down to just Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So at the beginning, we had 5 or 6 engineers working on it every day, all day, and now we're down to basically 4 engineers working in pairs 3 days a week, and the bugs are, and the flow of bugs the backlog of bugs is not increasing. So that was a huge win. The other thing that kind of surprised us is that this really even happened when the engineers were pretty unhappy with it. The designers wanted to crack at bug rotation too, so they set up their own bug rotation to fix look and feel problems on the site, and they've always liked it. I guess the way they did it was better, but they've been happy with it. And the other things that we've recently added is we added all of our operations engineers to the engineering bug rotation. So now we have people who mainly do system stuff, actually digging in, making changes to product code, pushing it just like developers, working with our developers every day. So it's pretty great to sort of, A, get people working together there as well, and B, getting the systems engineers to dig in and make product changes too, which is exciting for them, since mainly they just have to wake up when we create bugs and now they're helping fix them. And I think the more interesting question is kind of what did we learn from this whole process? So the first thing we learned is that mandates kill enthusiasm. we absolutely had to start by telling everyone they had to go to bug rotation. Otherwise, we would have had this big bootstrap problem. If you try and start something new and say, hey, and we'll take volunteers, we would have had 12 people, not 125 or whatever. But we should have gotten rid of that mandate a lot sooner than we did. Especially at Etsy, our culture is kind of we're not one of these companies like Valve or whatever where we don't have managers, but it's very much about kind of appealing to people based on reason, and people do things because they see the value in them, and so telling someone they have to do something really kind of goes against the grain in our culture. The other thing is that people, at least at Etsy, really want to collaborate. I think I probably worked at other places where this wasn't true, but when we told them that explicitly that you'll be pairing together and working with people you don't normally work with, like they were really excited about that change. And it was great to see. Like we like that people want to team up. So that was a big incentive to kind of buy into it. And the third one is you really have to iterate on process. In that sense, it's very much like software. Bug rotation was a really good idea at the beginning. It was very successful, but kind of the conditions changed as we closed bugs, and we sort of let it sit for 3 or 4 months when we should have been fixing it all along. And once we had, and another thing I'd say about that is that empowering one person to sort of own the process and change it really helped, because we didn't have to go back and talk about it every time. He would just come to bug rotation every week with a new idea, try it out, and then come back to the group and say, oh, I tried this thing this week and it worked really well. Let's make that part of the official approach. So exactly like software, you have to iterate on process if it's going to be good. You can't put something out there and say, this is the way it works, and it's going to be this way forever or indefinitely. That was where we really ran into trouble. Anyway, so that's all I have today. Oh yeah, people already have their hands up, so I'd love to answer a question. I think you were first in the back.
So 2 questions. First, what do you find the general, in your experience, the general severity of bugs that were being fixed in the effort?
Yeah. So the first question was, what was the severity of the bugs? So basically, any really severe bugs get caught by our instrumentation. Either they show up in the logs, or like they affect a graph that people watch when they deploy. So it was a lot of edge cases, and some of the hard ones were things like race condition on checkout on mobile web on Android, or that sort of like edge case that affects a few customers. And the real problem is it would affect maybe one customer over and over and over, but because they kept coming back, it would just really frustrate the hell out of them. To who?
To the original author of the bug?
Yeah, well, actually, the way it works is we have a pretty big support team. So they have a team they call Black Flag that sort of handles the interface between engineering and support. And so they kind of support funnels all the bugs to them. And they actually have a person from the Black Flag team who sits with the bug rotators every day, so that they can talk about the severity of the issues, or kind of get back to the support person who might have reported it or whatever. Oh, go ahead.
You said the opt-out, there are 5 to 10% opt-out. Do you have any insight on why? Is it more personality? Is it more situational projects or whatever?
Yeah, so actually, even though we explicitly did not tell people who had opted out, I mean, they probably could have reversed engineered it, but we didn't want to put a stigma on the people who chose to opt out. It's not what it was about. But because I managed the opt-out process, I knew who was on the list. So I did go ask some of them why they opted out. And a couple of them are kind of on our core infrastructure team. And so they felt, I mean, they could not get past the cleaning up other people's messes problem. They feel like they catch a lot of technical debt from people who launch features anyway. And so they're like, I don't want to take one day off to work on technical debt when I work 28 days a month on technical debt. That was fine. And I don't know, I think the other people are just kind of cranky. Anybody else? Oh, in the back.
What kind of reward or ability do people get for fixing something that was bothering users within the company? Do people see that someone's done this?
Not really. When we first started out, we sent out a bug rotation kind of progress report every day, and then another one every week. But we killed all those things because nobody was reading them. I think the rewards are basically completely intrinsic. You're helping people out. And with a support person sitting there at the bug rotation table, you'll generally get some credit from the person who's sitting there, like, oh yeah, this is really bothering people. So yeah, no, but it's mostly an intrinsic kind of reward. Oh, go ahead.
How heterogeneous is your system? I mean, how steep is the learning curve if you're trying to fix a bug in an area you don't know anything about?
So one thing we have at Etsy, for the most part, we have a couple of obviously native mobile is its own stack, and then we have search on its own stack, but pretty much everything else is on a really monolithic stack. It's in one GitHub repo, and that's true of both internal and both public-facing and internal applications, all the same repo of code. So for the most part, an Etsy engineer is an Etsy engineer, and you can at least dig in anywhere on the web stack, although obviously like there are some code around internationalization and payments and things like that that is pretty terrifying to look at if you've not seen it before, which is where like teaming up really helps. Go ahead.
I'm curious, did you see like any kind of reduction of bugs being created as more engineers were going through the bug rotation, where they kind of seeing a lot of consistent mistakes and then those were sort of fading out as time went on?
Not so much that because so many of them really are like edge cases. Between like our CI suite that runs every time you deploy and the kind of like post-deploy visibility, anything that's sort of pervasive gets winnowed out. And it was very much, there are a fair number of bugs that are even like data issues where the fix is go into the database and update these 5 rows, like your account got into a janky state or something. Cool. Good.
So, I don't know, maybe it's a perspective thing, but I mean, when you're not fixing bugs, you're producing them, right? So
that's true for me, for sure.
The idea of triage and fixing bugs, especially bugs not in your code, seems rather fundamental to the education and growth of the software engineer. So maybe it's the difference between a coder and a software engineer. It seems like they're opting out of their job more than they're opting out of a task.
Well,
and do you have that tied to a attrition model? Like the software, I understand ops people who do triage,
right,
always on bug rotation.
Right.
The software engineers that are grumpy, that just want to produce bugs instead of fix them. I know it's a kind of a pessimistic view on it, but it's sort of true. Have you tied that to any attrition numbers?
It's a good question. So definitely one person who opted out of bug rotation did leave. But it's interesting. So one thing I'd say is that bug rotation was explicitly for bugs in the backlog. So if you're working on something that's under active development, you are fixing bugs in that part of the site. This is more like pay down the technical debt. But I would also be a liar if I didn't say that I think engineering managers, the ones who knew who were on the list, might have thought a little bit differently about the person. And indeed, I will say that one of the people who was on bug rotation, who opted out of bug rotation, wound up switching teams, later, and I think it was kind of all related. Certainly I think it's a sign of more general unhappiness. If you don't want to do this, what other things do you not want to do, or how happy are you with your job? Which is great. And I'll also say is that letting people opt out kind of helped us, encourage us to fix the process, because we knew that if we didn't fix it, that everybody would eventually opt out.
When you have the support team prioritize the bug backlog, did you learn anything interesting from that? That you wouldn't necessarily have, what kind of bugs were coming up in their prioritized list?
Yeah, the main thing we learned from that is that without training, support people really don't know how to prioritize bugs. So we definitely had to give them a pretty fair amount of training, because they would pick something that had occurred once in 6 months. Which, yes, I know we got, it's just yes, we know you got an email about that, but we're doing things that affect millions of people. It would be great to, this is a total one-off, whatever. But yeah, and they're basically very sensitive to the noisiest customers, which is totally, that's the completely incentive structure of support. And so it's very much here's something about, I guess, the amount of benefit we get from fixing a bug versus the cost of doing it. If it takes a whole engineer day or a whole engineer week to do something, what are we not doing because we're fixing this really weird one-off bug? Well, anyway, I know I'm out of time, so.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Rafe.
Absolutely.